Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 113. It's not unlucky because it's 113, not 13. The podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I am your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost.
Okay, we got the OG3 back again, and we are going to talk about our favorite current Metroidvania projects and things that have come out recently in the Metroidvania space. I first of all wanted to mention a couple of the things that I'm playing right now. I'm in any given time I'm probably playing a Metroidvania game because it's my favorite genre, I guess you would say. It's a genre. But I just love these types of games, and I always have.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
Ever since Super Metroid came out, I love these types of games. So
wait a minute, Super Metroid's a Metroidvania?
That's so funny. But
nobody told me this.
For all intents and purposes, like the genre really starts with Super Metroid, right? Because before that, they didn't have the map system down and all that kind of stuff.
And then Symphony of the Night kind of, or even I would say, what was the one that came before Symphony of the Night? Rondo of Blood.
Are you talking about Rondo of Blood?
Was that kind of Castlevania, Metroidvania, or was Symphony the first one?
No, Symphony of the Night was. Rondo of Blood had branching paths like Castlevania 3 did.
Yeah, Rondo of Blood was kind of like Dracula. Like, we got it sort of in the form of Dracula X.
Mm-hmm. So there were there were a couple alternate paths in that game, but in the original Rondo of Blood for the TurboGrafx, there was an alternate level for almost every level.
Gotcha.
What I wanted to talk about here was, the games that we're currently playing. I love this genre. I've always been playing it. I even like the 3D iterations. Actually, I would say that probably my favorite games of all time are still Metroid Prime 1 through 3.
Those are solid.
I don't like to separate them as games. I don't know if you want to call them all one game or whatever, but I love all three of them, so I'm not separating them.
Yeah, I only ever played the first one, but I watched a bunch of the second and almost all the third, and damn, those games are good.
I think I beat all of them. I don't remember.
The third game has some of my favorite video gaming moments in general.
Probably the best Wii motion controls. The best use of Wii motion controls in arguably any game. Yeah.
Really good.
I mean, No More Heroes makes you feel good when you take out a bunch of guys, but it's
and when you jack off.
Kind of just yeah, right. But it's pretty much just like waggling the Wiimote though. Like with Metroid Prime 3, there's a specific thing you have to do, and it really just feels right when you do it properly.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I even like variations on it, I like things to mix it up, but I like a rote Metroidvania. I've beaten all of the Castlevania ones. Mm-hmm. I've beaten every one of them.
Yep, same here.
I've beaten almost every Metroid game in one form or another. I beat the remakes of Metroid 1 and 2.
What was the remake of 1? Was that Zero Mission?
Zero Mission.
Okay.
Zero Mission. So I've beaten all of the Metroid games in one form or another, except for Other M. Other M's the only one.
I think I actually beat Other M, so I got one up on you there. Although
there you go.
Maybe it's actually one down because I actually sat through the whole thing.
From what I've heard, I mean, obviously you would know better than I would, but from what I've heard about Other M, I mean, everyone talks about the writing, but I heard the gameplay was actually quite good.
The gameplay is actually not that bad. Just the writing is stupid as shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to say too that Metroidvanias are one of my favorite genres too. Like I would say if I had to pick one, it'd be RPGs. But just because of the time I have, Metroidvanias are probably my second favorite genre. Just kind of like how the exploration aspect to it. And it's like I like open world games, but I like Metroidvanias because there's a little bit more of a puzzle aspect to it, where
for sure
you're trying to find out where to go to get the new items that you can go to open up other areas. I've played tons of different ones. I don't remember some of the names of them, but there were some really good ones I've played.
There's some good indie ones out there too.
Actually, isn't the newest Strider a Metroidvania?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was actually like before like indie games were easily published. Like there were a lot of like free fan Metroidvania games. Like Hero Core was one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys have ever played Hero Core.
No.
That one's a lot of fun. It's like a black and white game that kind of looks like it was made for a Game Boy. I recommend that one. But I used to play like the Kinect games. If you ever played those. But what I wanted to talk about was ones that we are either planning on playing or are currently playing. The big one that I'm playing right now, I'm playing Dark Souls, which I think you could kind of count as a 3D Metroidvania because
if you really had to get pedantic and lock it down, I'd probably say no, but like it's close enough.
Yeah, and just like I'm playing Odin Sphere, I just actually platinumed Odin Sphere today.
And
I would really
beautiful.
consider that a Metroidvania, but it's close in a way because there is like the exploration of the maps but there's no really like getting equipment that you need that gives you new abilities. It's more just like a 2D action RPG, but it's similar in very, very, very minor aspects. It's more I just wanted to mention that I platinumed that game.
and more, I just wanted to mention that I just went into Blighttown, and boy, does it suck.
Oh, yeah, I mean, once again, if you had the Master Key, you could skip the part that sucks. Like, the bottom of it, the swamp, it gave me bad flashbacks to Demon Souls, but it's really not that bad. Like, if you can get down to ground level, you're like in front of the boss already.
So I did get down to ground level, but it took me a while, and I was cursing a lot because because of the blow dart guys, especially.
Well, those guys don't respawn, so you can YOLO.
I was just gonna say that.
Did you make it to the bonfire at the ground level?
Yes, I did.
Oh, so you're good. You're like you're through by far the worst of it.
Yeah, in fact, now at this point I can try to do the invasion, which for Maneater.
I was just gonna say, go human. She appears pretty much when you walk out from the bonfire. Kill her, and then summon her for the boss if you feel like it.
Yeah, so I ended up going human anyway, so I could kindle the bonfire there, just so I could have 10. Because I think in Blighttown that's particularly something you want, because if you get poisoned, you want to be able to heal. I got through all of the upper level, and I got all the items, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, by the way, did you explore the lower level at all?
I only did a little bit. I did get the treasure chest behind the false wall, which was good.
Oh, you know what's funny? And I'm going to tell you right now, do not do this yet, but there's a false wall behind that treasure chest too.
Oh, okay.
And it takes you into a secret level, and you can do it now, but like, I recommend that you wait until a faster method of travel becomes available, because you can go all the way in, but then you have to go all the way out because it's a dead end, and it just sucks. So come back later.
I'm also at a good level now. I have 32 strength, which was like the first milestone I really wanted to hit.
That's respectable.
With strength. I'm right now I'm trying to level some other stuff up, like vitality and endurance.
Yeah. Endurance is where it's at. No, Blighttown's still, like, considering Dark Souls, Blighttown is early game. Like, you could have gone there first. It would have been a terrible idea, but you could have. So 32 strength is really good.
Yeah, in fact, nothing's really giving me a hard time. I kill everything in 1 or 2 shots. But I also have really good equipment.
What I was going to ask, though, about Blighttown's exploration is that if you walk toward the boss, you'll probably run into that pyromancer who sells you, like, the super stuff. She's, like, the really good one. And there's also a pyromancer you could find just wandering the swamp, which you can't get anywhere else. You just find it there.
Yeah, I actually collected that in the upper level.
Well, there's one on ground level, so maybe there's also one on the upper level. I forgot.
Okay, I think I've got them both.
The upper level I have less of a memory of, because I've done that only once per, like, PS3 and once per PS4, because fuck the upper level.
But I wanted to move on mainly to talk about the proper Metroidvania that I'm playing, which is Hollow Knight.
Yo.
So I'm playing this game, and it has a lot in common with Dark Souls, I would say. But it is a proper Metroidvania. It just has some Dark Souls-ish elements.
Sure.
But I'm playing it on Switch. I bought it for PC a while ago, but never got to it. Once again, any game like this, any Metroidvania, or any game that I think is going to run well on the Switch, I'm just going to pick it up there because it allows me to play the game, first of all, in two different modes, in portable and console mode, and I also get to play it while me and my girlfriend are watching TV at night. So, really, really good stuff. But Hollow Knight is one of my favorite Metroidvanias since Ori and the Blind Forest.
Nice.
Ori and the Blind Forest was my favorite in a long time. I mean, I love this genre, so I'll play like even a boring Metroidvania or like a not that special one, but and still have a good time. But this one in particular is a lot of fun because it's difficult. And it's difficult in the way that Dark Souls is difficult, in that you can level up, but most of the leveling up needs to be done by you, like the player. You need to learn how to play the game, and beating the bosses is difficult because they demand a lot from you, and every time you die, it's pretty much your fault. Also, what I like about the game is it does not. It generally gives you direction, but it's not as linear as a lot of other Metroidvanias. You don't. There, a lot of times there's not an obvious place to go. There are 3 or 4 places that you can go in a given time, and that one or two of them might be easier than the other, but you generally have a choice of what you want to do. And if something is too hard, you can come back to it when you have gotten more abilities to help you fight. In fact, most of the abilities, while they are like basically keys to get into certain areas, just like other abilities in Metroidvanias usually are, they are also fighting moves most of the time, or evasion moves. So they are particularly useful in boss battles. So you can come back and fight a boss that was giving you a hard time, and you can have an easier time by having one more ability than you would have before. It does not lock you into which bosses you need to fight at what time. You can, generally speaking, there are some stopgap spots, but the game is more freeform. Not only that, but there's a lot of side quests in the game, and a lot of stuff to do with your money. The game has artifacts that you can equip. I believe they're called charms in the game, and you can only have a certain number of charm slots. Certain charms take up different amounts of slots. You might have one that takes up 2 slots or 4 slots, but you might only have 4 total slots. So you have to be judicious in what you're using your charms for. And the charms are kind of like stickers in Paper Mario. They give you special abilities. So in a lot of other Metroidvanias, some of the niceties are just bestowed upon you as you get through the game. In this, for instance, you might gain an ability that allows you to collect all the money very quickly that has fallen from bad guys. In this game, it's a charm. If you want that ability, you have to equip it. There's another one that I thought was like I never even thought of this as being a quality of life improvement, but so in the game you can you have to equip a charm in order to see where you are on the map.
Oh, wow.
I heard that was one of the things that people didn't like the most about Hollow Knight. Like, they loved everything else about it except for the map thing.
Yeah, that is frustrating because, like, Resident Evil did that too. Like, you could never see where you were on the map, just which room you were in general. But on Metroidvanias, the maps are way more complicated.
So, luckily, it only takes up one slot, and you can buy more slots as you progress in the game. So it's not that bad.
This is one of those things I see when you're on like a new game plus. You're like, I don't need that charm anymore. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So, or the game will get so familiar to you.
Exactly.
The environments are very unique in this game. They are not cookie cutter in the slightest. Every area is unique, and there's no cutting and pasting. There's nothing like that.
Well,
so you
also,
know where you are.
Yeah, well, that also kind of calls back to Dark Souls. I mean, Dark Souls does have very clearly different looking environments, but like Darkroot Forest, it's like everything's freaking trees. But when you've actually personally played it, you kind of start to remember where the enemies were and where the exit is. And like Bloodborne, everything's gothic and stone stairways. How do I tell one place from another? Like, if you actually play it, you like even I, Mr. No Sense of Direction, like you get a feel for it. You do.
Yeah, and there's even one other thing that, like, I think a lot of people kind of were taken aback by. So when you jump and you swing, whenever you swing your sword and connect with an enemy, you are knocked back by that. So if you're platforming, of course, that can add challenge to it. There is a charm that actually removes that. So if you are annoyed by that, you can actually equip a charm to deal with it. However, later on in the game, you can actually use that momentum to your advantage. You can actually do the Shovel Knight, like Scrooge McDuck pogo thing. Where you can jump on top of an enemy and swipe down and continue swiping down and bouncing off of them.
Sure.
So it's actually to your advantage to get used to the momentum.
Yeah, it's like Zelda 2.
And like Zelda 2, you're right. I was actually going to mention that as well, so good catch. But I actually think the annoyances of the game actually are not really annoyances, but actually trying to teach you how to play a game that is in a well-established genre in a different and more expert-like way. And I think the game is better for it. And there are all kinds of charms that will allow you to play in a different style. I have one that gives me a shield right now. There is like, normally you do not wield a shield at all, but this is kind of like a rotating shield that goes around your character.
Okay, yeah. Well, like an option in a shooter?
Kind of like that. It blocks most projectiles, but also acts as something that can attack an enemy.
Oh, so it's like the rotating little dudes you could have in Isaac, then? Yes,
or like one of the shields in Gradius. And it recharges over time. So it's one of the best charms out there, if you ask me, because it's very, very useful, and you can get an extra hit in because of it.
Nice.
So very, very useful.
Does that knock you back?
No.
Okay, because that could really suck. You're just moving and you're bounced back.
It has its own thing going on.
Okay.
So it just rotates around you. It also one of the cool things about this game is how flexible it is. So the way that you heal in this game is you attack enemies and you gain soul. So while you're hitting a boss, you gain soul. You can use that soul for multiple things. You can use it for spells, you can use it for attacks, and you can also use it to heal.
Interesting.
And so there's some give and take with that. If you're fighting a certain boss, you want to make sure that they're in the middle of some kind of animation or something like that while you try to heal, because it takes a little bit of time to focus to heal. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It has a Dark Souls-ish element that if you die, you do leave your money behind, your currency behind.
No, I guess it is like Dark Souls. I was going to say also kind of like Shovel Knight.
And the way that you recover it is you leave behind a ghost. And the ghost, you actually have to fight the ghost. It's not very difficult, but you have to kill it and it can attack you.
Oh, so it's like Zombie U then?
Basically, yeah. And then you can get your stuff back, which is pretty cool. Of course, you could lose it forever, just like a Dark Souls. So
Yeah.
you want to be judicious with it. But there are systems put in place in the game to make sure that you don't do that. There's even a merchant that you can open up towards mid-game where you can actually have them retrieve your ghost for you.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is pretty cool. So if you've died in a particularly precarious platforming situation, or it's guarded by an enemy that you just can't beat at that time, you can pay them to with a certain strange type of currency. It's a rancid egg, in order to go get your ghost for you. So all in all, I'm in late game now. I'm 22 hours in.
Oh wow, it's a pretty long game then.
There's a lot of content. They added a lot to the game. They added a lot of free DLC to it.
There's like 1 or 2 DLC, I think.
3 of them.
3.
There are 3 now. And there's a lot to do. I still have tons of things to do and still places to go. So it's a big overworld, but there's also a lot of stuff going on. And you don't have to do it all, of course, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue on with it, and continue leveling up my character, getting... What's cool is you level up your just your one weapon. You don't collect weapons or try to find certain weapons. Or,
Sure. Well, that makes things easier.
So,
or at least simpler.
So there are 4 different levels of sword. I'm on level 2 still. I'm trying to get to level 3. And I'm really far into the game. It's just that the things that you need to upgrade your sword are very difficult to find, and they're tucked away.
Sure.
So anyway, definitely worth your time. I definitely think that both of you should play this one. It's
I do want to play it.
Yeah, I put on my wish list. I have several Metroidvanias on my wish list that once I finish the games that I'm playing now, I might pick up Guacamelee 1, because I still haven't played that.
That's phenomenal.
Ori and the Blind Forest, which you mentioned, which I haven't played yet.
That game is brilliant. Yeah.
That game's brilliant, too.
Hollow Knight I'm going to put on there. Also, I have a game that came out recently, I think, called The Messenger, which I heard
that was good.
That's like Ninja Gaiden, yeah.
It's funny, I heard that it's split. Some people don't like the first half but love the second half, and some people love the first half and don't like the second half. So
wow.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes, but I definitely want to try that out. And I think those are all. But the game that I'm currently playing is called Chasm. It was a game that I backed on Kickstarter. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's basically just like a typical Metroidvania. It really does. The only thing special it does is the dungeons are randomly generated when you start the game. So, you'll have a seed in it, kind of like in Minecraft, where with that same seed, you'd have the same dungeons. But if I die, it's not like the dungeons are generated randomly again. It's the same one. So, other than that, it's very typical. You get wall jump, you get double jump, you get stuff like that really aren't useful outside of just exploration. There's items you can equip. There's teleporters. There's save points. It's basically it's like Symphony of the Night, but not as deep in a way. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I kickstarted it, so I'm feeling obligated to beat it, and I think I'm already 3/4 of the way done with it, and I've been playing it for a few hours, so I just feel like I just finish it.
Yeah, why not?
So Pyro, I actually saw an analysis of this game, and they actually took a look at the animation frames in Chasm, and apparently they're the wind-up frames and everything match exactly to Symphony of the Night.
It feels like it. It even has the backdash from Symphony of the Night. The only thing that I don't like about it is it doesn't feel very responsive all the time. If I do quick button input, sometimes a button is not noticed, it seems. So even though I'll hit an enemy and want to backdash, it won't recognize the backdash, 'cause I didn't hit it. I waited. I try to do it too soon, so the enemy hits me, and it gets a little frustrating. But it's not like it's a hard game. so I'm not like that annoyed. But I'm gonna beat it and be like, cool, I beat it. Next game. I was originally playing it for PC, but then I got the Vita version of it, and it's a lot better to play that on the go, I feel like, than on the PC.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool that they were able to come out with that on the Vita.
Mm-hmm.
I actually see a lot of people still like begging developers to make Vita versions.
I love
there
my
are
Vita.
there are dedicated Vita fans. Like I'm part of like a game collecting like a physical nerd, like physical game nerd collecting group on Discord, and my god, those guys love the Vita.
I love the Vita, and I am sad that it didn't do that well, because there are lots of games that I wish. So for instance, like Persona 5, there was a time when I was playing Persona 5 and I had friends who were watching TV, but kind of like the Switch, is I was able to play it on my Vita while my other friends were using the TV. So you can do that with the Vita, which is really great. Really though, the only games I'm playing on it now are, I was just like playing the Vanillaware games again, just because they're great games, and the Persona Dancing games. But other than that, like, I really have no use for my Vita, sadly.
I'm excited for the dancing games that are coming out on PS4, and I'm very excited that they're actually releasing the port of the Vita one with that collection.
Yeah, that was cool to do
really
the
cool.
dancing all night. Yeah.
Yeah, as much as I love the Vita, I think that the Switch is like the Vita like perfected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love the Switch. I love the Switch because I love the Vita. But now I kind of just want everything that was exclusive to the Vita to be brought elsewhere. Just because I feel like it's hampered by its nature. There aren't too many games that are stuck to it, but there are a couple important ones, like Persona 4 Golden is still on there.
Yeah.
That's the most notable one, but there are a couple others.
Well, for me, it's going to be Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
love to see that ported.
I think that was my first platinum game.
Nice.
And I think big fans of Lumines really love the Vita version the best. Because it was the one that had the most mature features in terms of game design.
Yeah.
Because the one that just came out is a remaster of the original game, so people love that game, but they love the Vita one in particular because of the extra stuff that it added. So I mean, there are a couple games here and there, but most of them have made it, thankfully. Like, the big ones for me, like Celceta, East Celceta was the big one.
Well, that hit, PC?
It's on PC now, yeah, exactly. So, Pyro, did you have any other things to add here about the ones that you're playing or looking forward to?
No, I mean, it's just been... and Dead Cells, I've been playing some more, too.
How you liking that?
I haven't actually gotten to play it that often since the last time I talked about it. I got to the same boss I got to before, but I died again. I didn't realize how close to the end of the game that is, so I got to the boss at the clock tower, not realizing there are really only 3 bosses in the game.
Like, oh wow!
There's 4 bosses in the game, but the middle 2, you basically fight one or the other. So there's really only 3 bosses you fight in one run, and I got to the second boss and I died, and I was like, wow, this is going to take me a while to beat. And I mean, it still will, but then I looked online to see like how many stages there were, and I just saw that it's instead of you, like in Symphony of the Night, there's a lot of different parts of the castle, let's say. But in Dead Cells, there's only one path you're taking each time. So even though there's, let's say, 10 areas, you're probably only seeing 5 of them every run.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
So
yeah, because there's alternate paths. You can go one of 2 paths usually in some of the later levels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so while I got to the second boss, there's still a lot of areas I haven't been to and like abilities I haven't unlocked yet. But I can see myself playing that for a while just because I need to get used to the boss AI, that one boss, so I can get to the final boss. But I do know that there are several weapons that I like. There's 2 traps that I get, like the double blade, I think it's called, and the crossbow trap. That if I get both of them, I just drop them both, and they just destroy every enemy. It's really great when like you do a cursed chest. So cursed chests in this game, it's funny. So first of all, they taunt you. So it's a chest with like a face on it. It's like, come on, touch me. You know you want to. Or it's like, and they'll be like S&M kind of thinking like please hit me. I need you to. I love it. But then eventually when you open up the chest, you get cursed, which means you basically one hit kills you. But if you can kill 10 enemies before dying, the curse goes away. But because a lot of these enemies are like pretty difficult, it gets really scary when you get cursed, because like one hit from just some random enemy and you're done.
Yeah.
But those traps make it amazing, because basically the first time I got cursed, I'm like, oh, okay, I should be careful. But I just kept throwing those traps down, and there was one actual set of enemies that basically I killed 10 with one of those traps. And I'm like, oh,
wow.
Oh, cool, I'm not cursed anymore. That was actually pretty easy. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's hard. It's definitely hard, and it's some of the enemies are annoying. I don't know if it's a mixture of skill level or just how they work, but you have to have a lot of patience in that game. I guess that's what it comes down to. And it makes it hard. Like roguelikes are very hard to have patience with, because you've run the same thing 20 times. I just want to get through this, and then you die in the first area, and you're like, okay, well, I need to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Enter the Gungeon's very similar. You don't want to get complacent in that game. You want to be able to beat, like, the first couple bosses are pretty doable, like, without getting hit, and you get an extra heart container by doing that in Enter the Gungeon. So, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't take your time with those first two bosses and make sure that you get a flawless against them, so you can survive the rest of the game. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're liking that game, because it's hitting the same itch for me that Enter the Gungeon was. So I'm loving it. I'm glad you like it, because I thought you would.
Yeah, I was gonna get it on PC, but then you got it for me for PS4, so I've been playing that. If it's on sale on PC, I might pick it up again, just because I really like it.
Sure. All right, how about you, Lotus?
All right, well, as far as, like, actual Metroidvanias, I don't really play that many. I do want to play Hollow Knight. And Perry also gave that game a shout-out. That's his, like, current obsession right now, actually. But, a
lot of content in it. You'll really enjoy it. There are, I forgot to mention this. You'll like this. There are alternate versions of the bosses to fight. And you get different rewards for doing so later on in the game. So
okay. Yeah, Isaac's kind of like that as well.
Also, there's like 20 characters, and you have to get to platinum the game. You have to beat all the bosses with all the characters, and there's fan mods that came out that they're eventually going to release as DLC.
Son of a bitch. Actually, regarding that, I only have one achievement left in Isaac's booster packs, and it's not even like a super skill one to get. It's just play until it happens. So we're getting there. But as far as Metroidvanias, the last real one I played was Ori and the Blind Forest, and we've talked about that before. That game's freaking great.
Ori 2's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, actually, yeah. I don't know when I'm going to play Ori 2, but I do look forward to it, because now I know that Ori 1 was really good. But as far as, like, the faux Metroidvanias, I could always fall back on Dark Souls.
Sure.
Like Pyro mentioned, he wanted to bring up Odin Sphere because he wanted to say how he platinumed it. Dark Souls is the only game I have, and probably the only game I ever will. I have platinumed twice, once on PS3 and once on PS4 with the remastered version. That game's freaking great. But lately, I've been playing Dark Souls 2, and, like, now I'm really fudging it, because that game feels less like a Metroidvania than Dark Souls 1 did. It's almost a little more like Demon's Souls. It's not full-on Demon's Souls where you teleport to worlds 1 through 5, but a lot of the ways you go lead to dead ends. So you can always fast travel back with the bonfire system, but, like,
it doesn't feel like as sprawling in a way, because things don't connect. And
yeah, there's not so much connection. Like, Area 1 connects to Area 2, connects to Area 3, but, like, usually the big payoff is a boss that's just kind of, like, at a dead end. Like, when you beat Blight Town, you ring the bell. When you beat the bell tower gargoyles, you bring the bell, but then you open a new dungeon that's like between both of those places, and that takes you to a new area. The thing is, with Dark Souls 2, when you're at the main hub, Majula, it's like Dark Souls 1, you can pretty much go anywhere you like. Like, take your pick. You don't need to beat a dungeon to get the key to open the other path. It's just that this level's higher level than the other, so you should do it in this order, but you don't have to, which is kind of nice. But usually those paths take you to dead ends, so everything doesn't feel as interconnected as Dark Souls 1 did. But it's still really entertaining to wander around and see what's there. But the level design, it definitely feels different from Dark Souls 1. I still like the level design, but the world design is just not what Dark Souls 1's was. Because what is? Also, this was surprising. A lot of bosses are optional. I mean, you might have to beat them to get like a covenant if you're interested in going for platinum, if you want to get those achievements. But if you just want to beat the game, a lot of bosses are skippable. In Dark Souls 1, you could skip the depths if you have the master key. Otherwise, I'm not even really sure how many bosses are skippable, like, through legitimate means. I don't know about game-breaking bugs, but, like, you could have skipped the Gaping Dragon. But otherwise, I don't even know if there's anything you can skip. Obviously, except for DLC stuff. But in Dark Souls 2, there is a surprising amount of bosses that are skippable. I'm still fighting them because they give you boss souls, which you can make into weapons and spells later.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am.
Do you need to beat the Hydra?
I mean, you don't need to beat either Hydra, but, like, that's not a boss with a big health bar. That's not like the end of a dungeon. That's just, like, a super enemy.
That's true.
Let's call that a mini-boss, I guess. You could pay your way to go around the Hydra, so you don't have to fight that if you really don't want to. But for DLC, you must. For DLC access, I mean, you must beat it, because I guess you could run around it, but you're not going to survive that trip.
How about the Moonlight Butterfly? You don't have to beat that.
Oh, you're right. You don't have to fight the Moonlight Butterfly. Again, if you pay your way around it. So, okay, that's a good point. You could pay your way out of that. But with Dark Souls 2... there's a boss that I had to, like, jump through hoops to even be able to get. Like, there are occasional statues blocking your path, but it is obvious that these statues are, like, petrified humans or enemies. And there's an item you can pick up called a Fragrant Branch of Yore, which unpetrifies them. And half the time they're enemies, so they just immediately pick a fight with you and you have to kill them anyway. But, like, oh, but they're out of the way now. I had to do that to get to a boss, which led to nothing. Just I got a unique boss soul. So again, if you're achievement hunting, that's great. But like, I had to pay my way to an optional fight. It felt kind of weird. Like with Dark Souls 1, you had to pay your way to not fight. Like, you don't want to fight? Fine, pay up, asshole. But like, I had to pay to fight. And also, a lot of the bosses I'm beating on my first try. Which is not normally a thing. There are definitely some bosses that have killed me over and over, but like, maybe 4 or 5 of them. Dark Souls 2 is cool in that it's very boss heavy, but the way I play, I'm a tank, a lot of them are very manageable. I just block their big swing and then just retaliate with swings of my own. So unless they have a way of busting through my stamina bar with a great shield, then I basically just wait them out and hack them until they fall down. One of the complaints I had seen about the game when it first launched was a lot of the bosses are large humanoids. Yeah, pretty much. With Dark Souls, you don't know what you're getting. Like, there's definitely a dragon theme, but there's a lot of diversity in the bosses. With Dark Souls 2, there's a little, but there's a lot of humans in armor. There's sentinels, which are basically these tall statues that are humanoid. There are tall skeletons. They're cool, but there's a lot of humanoids that you just block their sword strikes with. There are different types of bosses every once in a while, and it's really refreshing to see them. But there is that. At this point... Oh, go ahead, Vice, you have something to say?
I was just going to say that I just fought Sif, which, like...
Yeah, that's a good fight.
Surprised the shit out of me, because, like, I was... Like, the boss is called the Great Wolf Sith, but I figured the Great Wolf was a title.
Yeah, nope,
You're actually fighting an actual Great Wolf.
That's far bigger than you are.
Yeah. That has a gigantic sword in its mouth, and also you feel like a piece of shit while you're fighting it. So it was a fun fight. I only lost against it once. I've actually gotten to the point where I've leveled up enough where I'll get a first try in to figure out what the strategy is, and then after that I seem to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, you just go in and do it right. Yeah.
The only boss that took me multiple tries before I got a hang of it was the Asylum boss.
The first boss?
Well, no. Well, what?
Oh, the return trip. Yeah, that fight sucked. Yeah, the Stray Demon.
Yeah, the Stray Demon.
That fight was awful.
So I was able to beat that one, but only after losing several times to it to figure out what I needed to do.
But the payoff was something else, though, right? A freaking Titanite slab?
Oh, no, it's great.
Like, Titanite slab, unless you want to play the odds and have an excruciatingly low, it's not 0, but it's 0, % drop rate, that's one of only... I forgot if it was 2 or 3 Titanite slabs in the game, and maybe it was 2, and the other one requires a really long, drawn-out quest with a guy I don't believe you've met yet. He has this weird, onion-looking armor.
I've met him.
You have?
Yeah, he's sitting in front of the locked gate near the first blacksmith.
Yes. Once you... The first blacksmith?
Yeah, in right in near the chapel.
Oh, excuse me. I know what you mean. Yeah, once you beat Blighttown, that place will be unlocked.
Okay.
And by the way, that will be... I've told you how much New Londo Ruins fucking sucks, but that place is also awful.
Every place is awful. It's Dark Souls.
Well, no. But here's the thing. New Londo Ruins is awful, not because of the dungeon, but because everything in it at the first half is a ghost.
Yeah.
This other dungeon behind the locked gate, there are some enemies, but they're placed in frustrating positions, and also the dungeon itself hates you. You will find out what I mean.
Oh, I think I know which dungeon you're talking about.
Yeah, Sen's Fortress?
Yeah.
Yeah, that dungeon,
I hear that.
Yeah, I actually, the thing is, you're gonna rage, but, the first couple of times you die, it'll be kind of funny. Because it's oh, really? We're doing this? It's kind of entertaining for that. But regarding Dark Souls 2, I think I have... There's 3 DLC bosses. I think at this point I have access...
I imagine you're playing Scholar of the First Sin version.
Yes,
I can't imagine you wouldn't be. Okay.
Yes. At this point, I have access, I think, to one of the DLC areas, but I'm, too afraid to play it. Because in Dark Souls 1, it was fucking hard. In Dark Souls 2, the thing is, to get the key, because you have to find keys. If you're on the PS3, then when you buy the DLC, it just puts them in your inventory. But in Scholar of the First Sin, you have to, actually go out and get them. So what I mean is OG PS3 will just give you the items if you buy the DLC. With Scholar of the First Sin on PS3 or PS4, you gotta, go get them. So there are these lizards, these fire lizards guarding the keys, and I have strength of, 50 and, a +8 sword, and it still took me, over 10 hits to kill them, and I was like, this is not right. So I don't want to enter the actual DLC area. The only other thing I'll say is that I can't get there yet because it's endgame, but I've seen what I believe is the final dungeon, because you could see it from a distance from outside, and, I didn't see any enemies there, I just saw the building, but the building just looks intimidating. So I'm kind of excited. It's just jet black. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking forward to getting there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, we want to move on to our regular segments. I'm sure we'll have more updates to this because we love Metroidvania games. All 3 of us play them.
And Metroidvania lights.
Yeah. And, there's plenty of good stuff coming out. Guacamelee 2 just came out, but I'm waiting for the Switch version to come out. And also La Mulana 2 came out, and I'm also waiting for...
I haven't heard of La Mulana before.
So La Mulana is... the first one was kind of made to look like an old MSX game.
Yeah.
It was like a really cool freeware game, and then they remade it for PC. It's very difficult. It's basically kind of like every screen has a puzzle that you need to do in it, and it can be very cryptic, or you don't know what you need to do yet there, and it's a very difficult puzzle oriented Metroidvania. So very fun, but very old school and very hard. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. But I want to play the Switch versions of those when they come out, and I'm sure I'll pick up anything else that comes out. Really, I mean, but Hollow Knight is going to be my go-to until I get everything done. There's lots of content still that I need to play because of all the DLC. But I do want to move on to our regular segments. I do want to do Vize's Weigh In because I missed it last week. So I did lose a pound. So good stuff. 253 is what I'm down to. So continuing on, and hopefully when I shake this cold, I'll be able to work on it even more. Maybe it's even helping me. Who the hell knows? But I'm moving in the right direction is the important thing. Maintaining my weight was something that was difficult for me. I was able to do it over the past few weeks, and I was able to start losing the right direction. So very happy to do that. So we can move on to fan reactions.
Sure.
So Lotus, take it away for that.
Yeah, okay. So, this is regarding webcomics. General Ledger says, Dr. McNinja ended a few years back, sadly. I believe the author is now working on a Deadpool spin-off. Some of the webcomics I follow that you haven't mentioned are Girl Genius, a Victoria-era mad science comedy, Rusty and Company,
cool.
An adventure series starring classic D&D monsters, Modest Medusa, a Kid Medusa in modern-day Seattle, and Manly Guys Doing Manly Things, a comedy about a rehab clinic for overly macho heroes, which is sadly on hiatus.
I've read Manly Guys. It's pretty funny.
Nice. Solidus Scully says, great topic of discussion, but all the Corrective Consciousness fans really wanted more discussion on the imperial system of measurement. Of course they did. Yeah.
If you don't know inanity until you've heard Lotus and my conversations, like off the air, these are the ones that you like are actually have like a subject. Like we'll talk about like malapropisms and
Malapropisms are great,
and just like goofy things about language. We'll talk for like a half hour about.
Yeah, a malapropism that is also a Freudian slip is when you say one thing but mean your mother.
and a question mark and an exclamation point together is an interrobang.
Yep.
I forgot about that. I had heard that probably from you, but I forgot it.
And the pound or hashtag is actually an octothorpe.
Yep. I saw that recently, actually. It's pretty great.
And there's, of course, the ampersand.
Yes. So,
do you know why it's called ampersand?
No, I don't know that one.
I forget what it was, but it was basically like the alphabet. You have A through in the UK, A through Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so amsend.
It's like and per se. It's like it was like because you can't say and, so you had to have. You know what? I'm going to come back next time with the actual... I'll look it up while you're doing the other fan reactions, and I'll define it for you.
Okay. So Fakafon says, regarding Half-Life 1, yeah, Zen was pretty bad. It's not like it takes you a little time to figure it out. It's bad. It happens like right after you land on it. Fear was a fun game, but what I liked was that the regular pistol was so damn strong. It's not often you get games where pistols are on par with most other guns or better.
I like the original Fear quite a bit. I never played the sequels, but I enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, as for Freelancer, I remember playing it a while ago, but don't remember the game itself. It blends in with other space shooters for me. Yahtzee, there's Yahtzee Conquers the World comics. I think I stopped at the part where they have pancakes on their head. What? Speaking of jokes for fewest above zero, like, what was a joke you could tell where the fewest people get it, but someone gets it? It says, me and my family played a game like that on Christmas with cards that indicate foods, countries, professions, people, etc., and you gotta make people guess. But the fewer people who guess your word, the better. However, if no one guesses it, you don't get points at all. There's actually an official game that does that, where like you have these cards with these really abstract art on them, and you have to give a clue for which your card is, and other players have to put in cards of their own that might conform to it. That was one of my favorite games to play for a while. Perry has that one. I forgot what it's called, and it's going to drive me crazy, but like...
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, if you guess an incorrect card, then that player, the one who put that card down, gets the point. If multiple people guess your card, then I think they get a little bit, but if only one person guesses it, then they get max points, and you get max points as well.
Are you talking about Dixit?
Yeah, Dixit. That game's fantastic. So, the best way to approach this is by knowing your audience and what obscure references you can make without other people getting it. So
that's easy with us. That's easier with us than
that's our Cards of Humanity. Back when we made those sets, it was like they were like 100% in jokes.
So I found the definition. So the ampersand or and was like the 27th character in the alphabet, but you wouldn't say and because that doesn't make sense. Like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, Y, Z, and like that doesn't make sense. You would say and, so you'd say and per se and then it ends up becoming ampersand.
That's obscure.
Wow.
All right, so Fakafan also says, next time I'm on the show, I'll talk at length about my webcomic, because we had a question about that before. Like, Fakafan, how do you make these comics? As for webcomics I read, there's Dumbing of Age, basically comedy college drama, Banished, Wildlife, Order of the Stick, so imagine nuclear power but less wordy, Two Lumps, Cyanide and Happiness, Scandinavia and the World, Sandra and Wu, it has its ups and downs. Yeah, I've actually read some Sandra and Wu, it's pretty good. Atomic Robo, Gunner Creek Court, Two Kinds, GPF, Ponto, which is a Quebec webcomic about orange traffic cones.
Whoa.
What?
All right. It's very cute. The Adventures of Business Cat, The Ferrin, Happy Hauntings, My Sweet Sweet Monster. Fakafan's friend makes that one. And I, Fakafan, am eventually going to start reading Devil's Candy. So you got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, he's the go-to guy for this kind of thing. He knows this stuff.
And he says he used to read Dr. McNinja, Multiplex, and used to read a few on Keen Spot, but the names escape him, and used to read The Least I Could Do when looking for a group, but I fell off eventually. Dracologist says, this is going back to the Vortigaunt. He says the proper spelling of Vortigaunt is, like, in Half-Life, is Vortigaunt, V-O-R-T-I, Gaunt. So my mistake. Also Vorticon, I-C-O-N, Vorticon, also means vortex, so the meaning is something else. And on webcomics, he says he remembers following Flintlock to his conclusion while GameSpy existed. Now, as for
what? I remember there was I just had to mention this real quick. Do you remember the Gary's Mod comic starring Gordon Froman?
Yes.
Oh, so funny. One of the
my
funniest
favorite part
ones
was
I've ever
Ravenholm.
read.
It's just a really positive place.
He's
hey,
like,
buddy.
I love Ravenholm.
Yeah, wow. And just nothing happens there. It was amazing.
He's like, I love going here. It's great. Hey, Dr. Breen, I love your TV show.
What a freaking idiot.
I love that. Oh, go back and read that.
Those of you who have chosen or
so
been
good.
chosen. It's like,
I used to really like the, I forget what it was called, but the one with the Final Fantasy characters. Final Fantasy 1 characters.
8-Bit Theater?
8-Bit Theater?
Yeah, I used to love reading that when I was in high school.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You introduced that to me, actually.
Yeah.
Alright, so for our fan question, it's actually Fakafan again. What is your favorite way that games show you that enemies are dangerous or getting more dangerous? For example, a simple one is like in MMOs, where their names are displayed in red, so you can just tell. Or in Paper Mario, enemies start growing more and more spikes on them, or they become on fire. Personally, I think the way... This is still Fakafan. Personally, I think the way God Hand handled it is perfect. Enemies simply get taller and taller as the game goes on. Yeah, like, if you look at, like... You might not even notice it, but if you go look at level 1 and immediately go to, like, World 7, it's like, holy shit. And it's very effective and unsettling, because everyone you fight is, like, 2 or 3 feet taller than you toward the end of the game. They really are. It's just like, especially those wrestler guys. So, yeah, so what's your favorite way that games show that enemies are just getting stronger? I mean, this is going back to Dark Souls again, but some of the basic enemies just have a shield, or they're wearing armor now, or stuff like that. Like, they weren't wearing armor before, like that kind of thing. That's a decent way.
In Demon Souls, like, the first red eyes that you meet, you're like, oh shit, who
That's
the fuck
right,
is this?
because you meet a blue eyes and you're like, oh, this guy's stronger than other knights, and you meet a red eyes and you're like, oh, he must be even stronger, and then he kills you right through your shield, and you're like, oh,
just
shit,
wrecks your shit. Yeah, that the red eye color is distinct. It makes him seem like a Terminator almost, and he acts like it too.
And even in Dark Souls, the Black Knights are noticeably taller than everyone else, and if you've played Demon Souls, then even like you already know, and sure enough, you try fighting them and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think making the enemies look more imposing is definitely a good way of showing it. Like, I would guess you could say the MMO way is function over form. Like, very simply, it's telling you you're not powerful enough. Go away.
Or like this guy would do like a palette swap or something, and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Or in the old school RPGs, you just get, like, if you step on the wrong part of the continent, you just get your shit wrecked.
Well, that was only in like 2, because Final Fantasy 2, they did on the world map, they had their enemy spawns based on squares. So like the world map was divided into squares, and each square had a spawn rate. But the first continent you're on, technically the top portion of that was part of the square above it, which was the hardest area in the game. So if you accidentally walk there and get into a random boss battle, because it's technically in a different spawn zone, you just get wrecked. But
Tales of Eternia had something like that, but it was kind of on purpose. There's one part of the map that has like you fight different enemies in forests than you might fight them in like the grassland. And there's this one area that has like an extremely tiny forest area. It's like this little blip of forest, and you're like, why is that the case? So if you like, you might try getting into a fight on it, and if you do, there's like a full size like dragon enemy that you've never seen before, and you're like, oh fuck, and it just like destroys you.
But definitely like making the enemies look dangerous is the best way. I can't think of a game other than, let's say, God Hand or the way Paper Mario did it, but just making the enemies look more difficult is definitely my favorite way, because I mean, especially when you think about it, like in action games, you can't just have like a level on the enemy to show you that they're harder. You need to show you that they're harder, and you don't necessarily want it to be the player dies to find out that they're harder. Yeah. So making them look imposing is definitely a better way. Like I would say in Dark Souls 3, definitely the there's these like wraith type enemies that you fight in the ice-ish type area that definitely they walk up to you very, very slowly.
Oh, those are always the scariest.
So you can tell, and then like when they first attack you, they basically dash at you, and they get to you in like 2 seconds. You're like, oh shit.
Actually, Dark Souls 2 had an enemy kind of like that does the slow walk, but you don't even see him. You have to go out of your way to see him in the very beginning of the game, before you even establish plot. There's or maybe slightly after, there's this one little side path that you don't need to go up, but you just see these large footsteps, like these big like footsteps just leading off somewhere, and you're like, do I really want to find out whatever made those? And then you do, and it's just this big guy that doesn't run, and you're like, oh no. And
or
he just,
like,
duffs in the face.
You see these giant brains on bodies walking around, and you're like, that looks dangerous. And then it just looks at you and does damage. You're like, oh shit.
Oh yeah, those are the guys who cause like frenzy.
Yeah.
And you just lose like 3/4 of your health. You're like, oh my god.
It's Lovecraftian like horror. Like you're losing your sanity essentially.
Yeah.
I love that. I would. In Hollow Knight, there's actually something going on. So, the further you get into the game, I'm not sure whether this is because of the DLC or not, or whether this naturally happens, but you go, at a certain part of the game, you go back to the first section. You hardly ever need to go back to, the first section, because you can get past it with warps and stuff like that. And you've fully explored it like a long time ago. You go back there, and it is infested with a disease, and like all of the enemies are infested versions of themselves. So they actually they add it that gets added to your first of all of those new versions of those enemies need to be added to your journal if you're going for completion's sake. But not only are they more difficult, but most of them explode when after you kill them. So they'll get in one last shot. and the background's infested too. So like it's really neat to see like that the whole level is with flora and fauna combined is like degrading.
I think I have thought of something. Demon Souls does one thing and Dark Souls does another. The Demon Souls one I'll say first. It's a little unfair because it's a boss, but there's a particular type of enemy, like the Laughing Minister, which shoots fireballs and he's frustrating and he's like a heavy axe. They're not overly hard to kill, but they're definitely harder than other enemies in that area. But as you go through World 1, there's one like cutscene only one of those guys who keeps running away from you and luring you further and further into the level, until when you finally get to the boss of that area, he's standing at a gate and laughing at you, and then the boss just like impales him with a lance and throws him somewhere, and you're like, oh! But Dark Souls, I've mentioned this before, in Darkroot Garden, the big mushrooms, like the joke enemies that that penetrate your shields and kill you in one punch. Because the thing with those, number one, they move slowly, like you said. But number two, you're like, oh, they're bigger versions of those mushrooms. But if you look at their hands, their knuckles and like most of their fist is red with blood that is obviously not their own, and you're like, okay, like maybe I'll use ranged attacks, like and when you do, you'll see that they have HP for days. Like they're easy to dodge, but do not ever get hit.
You need to fight the mano a mano for sure.
For God's sake, yeah. So those guys, but any enemy that walks slowly. Actually, Vice, that area you had mentioned, where you found a secret chest, like behind a hidden wall in Blighttown, I told you there's an area behind that chest too. Not that area, but the area past that, there are a couple of enemies that just kind of trot toward you, like do, and you're like they're it's faster than walking, but they're in no real hurry, so you're like, it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, well, if that's the case, I think we got some good coverage there. Please do put your own responses to this question, because there's some interesting things that I think, we, of course, we're stuck in the Dark Souls, Demon Souls land here, but
that's just what we're playing.
Yeah, it's what we're interested in, but I'm sure there are plenty of other games where we're missing some good indications of that kind of thing. So we'll adjourn this for this week, and we will see you for Recon on Tuesday. So we want to thank our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Battle.net, and Switch.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you're interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in on a Discord chat with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost on Battle.net, Steam, PSN, and probably that's it, for now at least. So, go looking.
And the housewares section at Sears.
in aisle 6.
Aisle 6. I don't work there, I just hang out there.
In a dying department store, Jesus. Okay. In Woolworths.
Yeah, Sears and Roebuck.
All right, we'll catch you on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye, everyone.